Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Blue Chip Marketing's production of Get Secure with Arrow Security. I'm your host, Mike Blangiforti, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Public Relations for Arrow Security. And welcome to the March 24th edition. Today we switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about global politics today and how it relates to safety. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and we have breaking news right now about Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 and the wreckage being recovered from the South Indian Ocean. We're also going to be talking about the Russian annexation of Crimea in the South Ukraine. So two very important topics. And I'm happy to be joined today by former Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rich Dormer. I'm also a security expert. Commissioner, welcome again.
Thanks, Mike, and shout out to all your viewers.
Thank you. And so breaking news right now, Commissioner, this is just as of just a few minutes ago. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 appears to be confirmed that wreckage has been spotted in the South Indian Ocean. And this is just as of a few minutes ago. So many conspiracy theories on this airline going missing that, I mean, I don't know, to me, it's almost surprising that it crashed based on, that it changed course, that the transponders were shut off, it just too many things that seemed to, at least my belief was initially that I thought that perhaps this plane landed somewhere that we didn't know about.
Well, it's good news that they've located the wreckage. It'll bring closure for the families, and I mean, this thing is over 2 weeks, and I was always the belief that we would find that plane. With all the resources available in the world, we were going to find the wreckage. And, from the evidence that we knew early on, it appeared that humans were involved in crashing this plane. Although, again, that's speculation, but that's what it appears to be. But again, it's good news that they found the wreckage, and hopefully they'll find out what happened.
I mean, all speculation, but from when this story first broke, there were certain things that we knew fairly quickly. We knew that it changed course. We knew that the transponders were shut down. This is all human intervention. Somebody had to know to change the course. Somebody had to know how to shut the transponders down so that, and for those of you that aren't aware, when you shut the transponders down, basically means that the airline can't be detected by general radars. It won't be detected unless a satellite is picking it up somewhere. But all human things, course change, transponders shut down. So why crash it into the Indian Ocean? Wasn't there a purpose? Why would you shut the transponders down and then crash the plane?
Well, Mike, this is just like a criminal investigation. You've got to find out the motive. What was the motive for this plane to change course, have all this locator equipment turned off, and then the plane crashes? So, if you can determine what the motive was, whether it was terrorism or suicide on the part of the pilot or pilots, hopefully we can find out what happened, because most of us fly in planes at some point in our lives, and even though it's the safest type of transportation in the world, we still worry when we get up on that plane. So it's very critical that the investigators find out why it happened, what happened, and why it happened.
You think the black box will even be recovered? I mean, that where it went down in the Indian Ocean, the ocean depth and the topography, from what my understanding is it's almost 3 miles deep.
It's going to be. This is going to be a very complex recovery operation, but we do have equipment available. The U.S. does, and I'm sure there are other countries that have equipment available that can go to that depth. It's orange box. It's not a black box anymore, but I know what you mean, Mike. All that computer data is in there. It'll give a lot of information, a ton of information that the investigators would like to get their hands on.
Right, and we're still within the 30-day range of the black box could emit a signal for up to 30 days. So we're still within that range. So perhaps there's still a chance of recovering that, because there would be some significant information off that black box that could certainly lend to this investigation. And but there still are people out there, Commissioner, that are saying that that they're still not convinced. They're still not convinced. There was such, how many, did the media kill this story? Did they, and I mean killing it in terms of, was there over coverage of this story? It was the lead story on, I think, virtually every single national news organization for the past, since this story broke over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was amazing to watch this stuff, and it reminds me of like serial killer investigations and criminal investigations. If the media doesn't know, a lot of times they make it up, or they get somebody to come in, a talking head, and they'll make it up. And that's what happened with this thing. They had people on that had no idea what happened, but they were speculating. Every 5 minutes there was speculation about this could happen. And in fact, one station had that a black hole sucked the plane in. I mean, this is how bizarre. This is how bizarre it got.
Yeah, alien theories, a black hole. The plane landed in Pakistan, Iran, or Afghanistan.
And all these people were alive, and their cell phones were still ringing, which really doesn't prove anything, because the phones will ring. Has nothing to do with if the phone is working or not. But the conspiracy theorists, by the way, had a field day with this thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, the experts, the people that were involved in the investigation, a lot of it has to be kept under wraps as they investigate this incident. And so, again, I equate this with a criminal investigation where you can't let all your eggs out of the basket. And so now, hopefully, with the location of the wreckage and the recovery of all the wreckage, and hopefully the remains of the passengers. And I should, and your viewers probably know very well that this is a very hostile environment. This is not Long Island Sound. This is not just off the coast of Long Island.
Yeah, I mean,
this is a tremendous operation.
I was virtually unfamiliar with the South Indian Ocean until, you know, the news broke about the treacherous weather conditions that are in that area. 20-foot waves, white caps. Apparently it's winter there now off the coast of Australia in that particular 3-mile depth, and the whole topography of underneath the ocean definitely had to complicate this.
And another point I think maybe we should make, Mike, is that the cooperation of governments in this recovery of this plane, where it went down. We have countries that don't have good relationships working together. I really got to commend the Australians. Again, you mentioned it's off their coast. They put a lot of assets into this recovery. But countries throughout the region and throughout the world have helped locate this plane. So that's one aspect of this thing we shouldn't forget about, that when something like this happens, we can work together. Again, on behalf of especially the families that lost loved ones in this crash.
Right. Now, I mean, I know you well enough that I know that you're not a conspiracy theorist.
No, not at all.
And, you know, I know you and I spoke about TWA Flight 800 when, you know, that happened back in 1997, and we know the conspiracy surrounding that still surrounds it even as of today. The question I guess I have, because, and this is what, I mean, and I guess it's on everybody's mind, like, well what happened? It changed course and the transponders got shut down, and then we know that the plane was flying around for several hours. This isn't like, you know, half an hour later, the plane goes down. It was flying around for several hours before, and obviously it eventually went down. Why?
That's the million-dollar question. Why? And you have to answer that, the motive. Why did that happen? Again, human activity had to be involved in what happened to that plane at a certain point. I don't believe, and a lot of experts don't believe, it was mechanical. You had to actually, humans had to actually turn some of the equipment off.
Yeah, it can't be mechanical because the transponders were shut down.
Exactly. So somebody had to do that in the cockpit. Now, was it one of the pilots? Did somebody make an entrance into the cockpit? These are all the questions that the experts have today. Again, was it a terrorist type of thing? Was it a suicide type of thing? What was the motive? And if you get the motive, that will really help with the investigation.
But you would think that, say the motive was to crash the plane, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to hijack the plane, they didn't want it to be detected, and then they just wanted to crash it. Why wait hours? Why not just take the plane right down? They had control of it.
I know, there are so many questions with this thing. I mean, the plane didn't start to nosedive right away into the water and disintegrate. You know, what was happening in that plane? Will the recovery answer some of these questions? Again, that's going to be very difficult because, again, the terrain has, you know, obviously had some impact on the recovery, and if there are bodies, if there are, you know, remains. So it's going to be very difficult. But they got to get, like you mentioned, the black box, which is now orange, for recovery efforts. But also parts of the plane, you know, they reassemble that thing if they can get it. They put it back like a jigsaw puzzle in a hangar someplace. And it takes months and maybe years before they'll find out what happened.
You know, so certainly, you know, more to come on this story with the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. And often I think times that we also tend to, because of the sensationalism in the media, I think we tend to overlook the human aspect of this. Those families, from what I saw on television, anguished, painful, raw human emotion, and that's what concerns me a lot about the media frenzy. Here you have people that their lives have been turned upside down, they're grieving, and they're having cameras stuck in their face for a story. I think it's disgusting.
Well, you know, we have a tremendous appetite for this kind of stuff, the public does. And that's why the media goes on this frenzy, because it sells. People turn their televisions on to watch this thing. They read their newspapers to find out what happened. So people are interested in this. It's a very human interest story. And so, you know, I know people jump on the media. It's the talking heads that I got a problem with because they make up stuff. They speculate. Where there's a vacuum is going to be filled by hot air. And there was a lot of hot air on this event.
Yeah, it just seems that, my own personal opinion, the media overdid it on this particular case. I think they had a complete lack of regard for the victims' families and what they were going through. And it almost seems like they were just looking to fill airtime with
well, Mike, I think everybody knows today the media is not just you know, information to the public. It's also a business. Ratings are the heartbeat of the media today. Ratings are everything. If they'll stay on the air, how successful they are, how many people they can hire, that kind of thing. So, you know, it's not just getting the news out there.
Right.
It's surviving as you know, as a company or a business.
You know, it also has to do with the responsible reporting of the news. And in a lot of what I saw on television, there seemed to be a little bit of media irresponsibility insofar as sourcing and getting the facts, putting out more speculation than facts. And they did it to, I believe, sensationalize. And with this case, I believe that they overdid it. But certainly, my sympathy and my heart goes out to the victims' families and what they're going through right now. And to be able to bring them closure now with the discovery of the debris from the aircraft, at least it brings them some closure. So our sympathies and our prayers. So now switching gears for a moment, because there's so much going on in global news today, we're going to switch to what happened in South Ukraine with Russia's annexation of Crimea, violation of international law. You have Putin, who basically he invaded a country and took it. What happened?
Well, it was on the pretext that it was a Russian country, A majority of the people in that country speak Russian. And this was the pretext, by the way, very similar to when Hitler moved in World War II, where there was German population in a particular country, and that was the excuse to move in to protect them. And this is very worrisome, by the way. I talked to my relatives in Europe over the weekend, and they're very worried about this. You know, the everyday guy and gal on the street should be worried about this. Where is it going to end? Is he going to stop with this this country? Is he now, has he got his sights on other countries that surround Russia and are going to move in again with the same pretext, take them over? And, you know, this creates a big problem for NATO and for the United States. And, you know, when we mention the United States, and I've mentioned this many times to my students at college, a lot of people say they don't like the U.S. and they're always knocking the U.S. When they're in trouble, they look to us because we carried the big stick. We always did. As Teddy Roosevelt said, and I know he's one of your heroes, yes. Teddy Roosevelt said, you know, speak softly but carry a big stick.
Are we carrying a big stick right now under President Obama?
Well, I don't want to criticize the president. I'm not on here to do that, but the government itself should be very much concerned about our military, how we're seen in the world. Are we seen weak? Are we seen on top of events?
Well, this
are
speaks,
we controlling events?
But this speaks directly to criticism of this president. That's exactly what you're saying speaks directly to the criticism of this president. My argument is we're not speaking softly and carrying a big stick. I believe this president has failed. I believe that we could tie it right back into Syria. The genocide that happened in Syria, killing all those people with chemical weapons, proof that he killed all those people with chemical weapons. And what did we do? We said we were going to do something. We didn't do it. Doesn't the global community look at actions, or more specifically inaction on this president's part?
No, they do. They look very closely at our diplomacy and how we manage our diplomacy, the U.S. And the other rogue countries, by the way, North Korea, Iran, you know, places like that, they're watching this very closely. They're figuring if we make a move on obtaining nuclear weapons, for example, is the U.S. going to do anything? Now, I'm not advocating for 1 second that we get militarily involved in these conflicts.
No,
I don't think Americans are ready for that. I don't think the country is ready for that. But there are other diplomatic things that you can do, you know, that would let everybody know that this is the line, do not cross it. But you mentioned the red line again. It was crossed and nothing happened. So that's the bad signal.
You know, it's funny, Commissioners. I was looking at some footage that I saw during the debate between President Obama and Mitt Romney, you know, the Republican nominee for president. And they had a clip on from this debate where Mitt Romney is telling the president that, and this is, I'm paraphrasing, but he told the president, you know, unlike you, I don't look at Putin through rose-colored glasses. Prophetic on Romney's part? I think so.
Yes, very telling, by the way. And he got unmercifully crucified for that because he was picking the wrong country. I mean, everybody wanted to be friendly with
oh, yeah, Russia's our friend, everything's rosy.
It's all
we
hugs,
all love each other.
Yeah, it's all hugs and kisses. That's not the way the world runs. And again, as I mentioned about my relatives in Europe, they're watching this thing very closely because NATO, which, by the way, has got almost all the countries in Europe in you know, one group, 28 countries. And by the way, the U.S. is part of that. And we have treaties with these countries, which means if they're invaded, we come to their defense. It's very clear. They're worried about that. They're worried about our commitment to that. Now, the president is going to Europe. He's going to sit with the G7. These are the top, you know, powerful countries in Europe. And hopefully they come up with a coordinated strategy to deal with Putin. I mean, where would he stop? I mean, if he annexes other countries,
But what concerns
where
me,
is he going to stop?
Well, we're already seeing that he's already building up Russian troops in Crimea already. Just yesterday, there were stun grenades at one of the air bases in Crimea. What's the focus is to get the Ukraine army completely out of where he's annexed. He invaded a country, he took it over. So where is he going to stop?
That was an independently elected country, by the way, the people that were running that country. So they had been elected. It was an independent country. And then on this pretext that, Russian-speaking people were being abused and their rights were being abused, we're going to move in to protect them. And then they held a vote, okay, which, in these countries is not like a vote in the U.S. And so now it looks like he's legitimately taken over that country. But that's not true, in violation of the treaty.
Well, legitimate in his mind, because he signed a piece of paper, and now Russia annexes.
And the other thing, and you and I talked about this, Mike, before we came on the air, about making a joke about this thing, where the president, put sanctions on 10 or 11 of his top people in Russia. He came back and picked 10 or 11 of our top.
That's tit for tat.
So this is like
nothing.
A schoolyard spat. This is too serious for that kind of stuff. Where is the dialogue? Where are people talking about this?
Well, we're talking about global foreign policy, and we're talking about two superpowers putting sanctions that have to do with these 6 people can't come here and these people can't come here.
That's a sideshow, by the way.
It's a sideshow.
Yeah, and we have to be very careful with this thing. Okay, does this guy think that he can push and push and push, and then we come to the point where military action is required? This is the fear, by the way. Nobody wants that. I mentioned the cooperation with the recovery of the plane. Okay, countries got together to search for the remains of that plane. Why don't we have cooperation here? I mean, this is a very dangerous situation, and I think ordinary people, and your viewers will probably agree with this, should pay attention to this stuff. Most people don't want to think about this. We have enough wars.
That most people, most of your general public, they're not following global politics, and they're concerned about what's happening in my backyard.
No, Mike, they expect their government to take care of this. That's why we elect these people, to take care of this. I shouldn't have to be worried about that. I talk about this in the criminal justice setting. They expect their police to take care of problems, so they can go about their daily lives without worrying about that. The same with our government. We expect our government to take care of these issues with other countries, with the military. And by the way, I should mention the military. Congress is looking at cutting back on the military. I think that's going to change. I think that this is not the time to cut back on our military. Remember Teddy Roosevelt again, with that big stick?
Yeah.
You have to have that big stick. A little fear goes a long ways.
Yeah. So you believe in increasing the military at this time, but we have a president that believes in cutting the army right now. So, I mean, obviously, it's a stark difference of opinion.
Well, Congress will have a big say in that, too,
Yeah,
whether
sure.
it gets cut or not. But I think it's not the time to be cutting our military.
Absolutely. I mean, presidential approval ratings plummeting. Do you know what the approval rating is for Congress right now? I just saw a recent percentage. You never
Pretty
believe
low.
it. 12%.
It's pretty low. And I teach criminal justice courses, and I tell our potential officers, police officers, how they rate compared to, you mentioned politicians, the media, and way above them are cops, doctors, nurses, teachers, people that pick up your garbage in the morning are very important to us. And so, why? Are we losing confidence in these people?
Yeah, well, we're losing confidence, and there's other countries that are seeing that we have a very unstable Congress, a divided Congress, and we have a president that seemingly, by all accounts, especially recently, lacks leadership. Did Putin strategically wait till after the Olympics in Sochi?
Well, if I could back up a little bit, Mike, a leader shouldn't seem detached from what's happening. And that's the feeling that we get from our president, that he's detached. He goes on, different shows, comedy shows, when all this stuff is swirling around in the world. That is not the time to be on a comedy show, laughing it up, by the way. This is not funny. This is a serious business. And again, he should be, the appearance of being serious about it is very important. Appearances are very, very critical in the world, you know, the way they view us.
Yeah. Well, you know, we keep referencing Teddy Roosevelt. I'll do you one better. Would something like this have happened if Ronald Reagan was still president?
I doubt it. He was a different kind of guy. He was a guy that wore his suit in the office every day. He took the job very seriously. This was something he didn't take lightly. And our enemies, by the way, understood that he wasn't somebody to be trifled with.
Right.
And that's important. You know, it's almost like children and parents. The children should know that they shouldn't trifle with their parents. Okay? They will push and push and push, but there comes a red line where you can't cross.
Right.
You have to know that.
Right. And we keep, and you know, Ronald Reagan, you know, obviously was one of my favorite presidents of all time. And we seem to not have that type of leadership, that type of direction. You know, we have to have, in the United States of America, we're the strongest country on the face of the earth. We have to be acting like it more often. We have this thing, you know, with Russia making its moves now. We saw what happened in Benghazi, which there's still so many questions. That's another show, but so many questions circulating around Benghazi. The IRS scandal, the genocide in Syria, and the lack of a response to that. The global community is watching, Mr. President, and
well, particularly in NATO. There's 28 countries in NATO. Okay, and we're one of them. The 27 other countries, very, very nervous. Okay, because they're worried about their economy, and not
Sure.
If it's not just war, they're not going to go to war with Russia, but it's economic, you know, reasons. The economies in Europe are still not good.
Oh yeah, well, so
Russia's
what happened in
economy
Greece,
is not
yep,
good.
Yep.
Okay, and
that's why the sanctions have to be real sanctions. You know, look, there's a strategic angle as to why Putin annexed this particular region of Ukraine because of its natural resources,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
so it's no joke what he's doing here. It's obvious. He did it. It's an illegal act, and we allowed it to happen. But you know, so a lot going on in the world. So you know, basically, you know, in wrapping up today, you know, we talked about Malaysia Flight 370. We talked about what's happening in the Ukraine. This show is about getting secure, and we have the strongest nation in the world, and you know, we have to be a secure nation, and that's thanks to our military men and women. But I want to thank you, Commissioner Dorma, for coming on today. Certainly, fascinating discussion, and you know, we'll keep monitoring current events as they happen. And it's been a pleasure to be with everybody today. Thanks for tuning in to Get Secure. I want to thank my producer, Donna, my cameraman, Keith, and our control room fella, Mike. And thanks for being here today. Thanks to Blue Chip Marketing, and thanks for Arrow Security for sponsoring this show. See you next week, everybody. Have a good one.